Parenting is a struggle, and if you have stepchildren, it can be even trickier because there are all sorts of other emotions and circumstances woven into the fabric of that relationship. Joining me now is relationship coach Crystal Ships. And Crystal, you counsel many families who are blended, who have stepchildren, half siblings, step parents. What would you say is the biggest mistake a step parent or a potential step parent would make in a relationship?
I think the biggest mistake is trying to rush that relationship and also trying to parent the child too quickly. Parenting the child is not the step parent's job, it's the parent's job, but sometimes it's very tempting.
Even if the biological parent is out of the picture, would you still suggest treading very lightly and going slow?
I think so. I think no matter what the relationship is with your spouse and their ex, the child is still going to have a relationship with their parent, and it's always important to tread lightly, for sure.
In families where there's a second or third marriage, often the children they're angry, and they might be angry at the step parent. They might just be angry at the situation and take it out on the person they identify closest with it, which would be the step parent. So what do you tell a step parent who feels they're being treated poorly by their stepchild if the stepchild is so angry and lashing out at them?
Sure. A lot of times this is why the family will come to counseling, because the way that the step parent's being treated. I think it's very important for the other spouse, the other parent, to be involved and kind of be the go-between between their children and their new spouse, and kind of make sure that everyone's being respected and go from there.
So you need your partner, who is the biological parent of the child, who you are step parenting. You need your partner to step in and really be unified with you. How do you do that? It's such a delicate thing. How does that parent do that without the child feeling like they've been betrayed?
Again, a lot of times this is why they come to counseling, to learn how to everyone talk to one another respectfully. And it is a hard situation. I do believe, though, that when a second marriage happens, that both of the adults have to understand the ins and outs of that situation and what they're getting into. And I think it's very important for the new spouse to have a very strong sense of self-worth and identity, so their identity is not made or break by whether or not the kid likes them.
So be able to weather the
slaps
that you might
absolutely.
be taking emotionally.
Absolutely.
Does your advice differ if the stepchildren are teenagers or college age?
Absolutely. I think it takes longer to develop that relationship the older the child is. They've had more of their life without the new parent than they have without. And younger children seem to be a little more resilient to
Younger
those.
children?
Yeah.
Would that be the same for tweens?
That's probably the hardest age.
Yeah.
I would say 12 to 15.
It's tough being 12 to 15
Absolutely.
if your childhood is idyllic.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then to throw this in the mix, you got to just kind of really take that very delicately.
Would you say there's a timeline for developing a relationship with your stepchildren, and can you let that timeline breathe if it's not happening, or do you feel like, hey, if it's not happening after a few years, you got to really start pushing?
Right. I don't think there's ever a time to push. I think that each person is different, each personality type is different. Some people don't open up to others normally, even if it's a step parent or a stepchild, and just keep at it, keep being a nice person, keep being there for them, for the children, and eventually, hopefully, they will see that the new spouse is well-intentioned and does love them.
And eventually might be years.
It could be.
You gotta go through those years.
Yeah.
What would be your best piece of advice for a step parent who's watching right now, who's beating themselves up because they feel like they messed up and they feel like it's too late, like they want a do-over? What would be your advice to them?
A couple things. I think it's important to have an open line of communication with your stepchildren, especially if they're older, and have a conversation. You know, say, I don't know if there's something that I may have done inadvertently, was not my intention. Bring this other spouse in on the conversation. I am a big fan of transparency. Anytime you can get things out on the table and talk about it is so much better than just keeping it inside.
And just letting it fester.
Yes.
Crystal Ships, thank you. A relationship coach, therapist, dating expert, family relationship coach. Thank you for being here.
Sure.